Okay, hello, hello. Welcome to today's Westcon Plum Store analyst only webinar. I'm Duncan Chappell. I'm really delighted to be introducing the webinar today and passing the way to our speakers. Just a couple of housekeeping notes while people are logging in. At the bottom of the panel is a Q&A option. Please use that Q&A option if you have questions to submit. What we'll do is keep an eye on these. If there are questions that are immediately relevant to the data that's being presented, then we'll try to pay attention to them immediately. Otherwise, we will probably store up questions and answers until the end. You might be delighted to hear that the webinar is being recorded, so you don't need to break your hand taking down notes. We're recording this. We will share the recording with you and with anybody who registered and couldn't make it, so that then you'll have a record of the webinar to come. I'm really delighted to be introducing people from Westcon Comstore and Sabio in this conversation. Westcon, I'm sure you know, is one of the biggest distributors in the world. Sabio, a role model example of how how developed a channel partner can be, how integrated, how much value they can create for their clients. And this research, one of the most outstanding, most extensive pieces of research into the way that marketplaces in particular are being encountered by channel partners, is absolutely fascinating. So what I'm going to do is hand over to Runa. Runa can introduce herself. Johan also can introduce himself, and then we're going to get straight into this research. So thank you very much and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you, and hello, everybody. So yes, my name is Runa McLeod. I am based in the UK. You might be able to tell from my accent, but I'm Westcon's global VP for marketing, and I'm responsible for a number of different marketing functions at the company. I'm also responsible for this research project, so I'm really looking forward to sharing with you some of the learnings that we got from the work that we did with channel partners earlier on this year. I think most of you know who Westcon Comstore is, but just in case you don't, just a few headlines. So we are a global distributor, a specialist distributor. We work with a number of global vendors across the cybersecurity, networking, and cloud infrastructure space. So the likes of Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike, Juniper. We have over 12,000 partners across predominantly the EMEA and APAC regions. And they range from anything from large global customers like BT, Orange Business Systems, IBM, through systems integrators, MSPs, and predominantly enterprise-focused VARs. A little bit about our kind of history, and I suppose some things that are relevant to the conversation today. We were established in '85 in North America, and are now, I would say, an international organization. We sold our Americas business about 7 years ago. And I think the really interesting thing in terms of our business and its turnaround, you can see over the last 5 years. In 2018, we appointed a new leadership team under the leadership of David Grant, who's our CEO. And we've seen some really sort of significant changes and I think turnaround in our business over those years. So trends that we'll all be familiar with, such as the pivot to remote working, investments in cybersecurity, and this shift to recurring revenue. In the last 5 years, the software and recurring revenue elements of our business has doubled. Something like 60% of the business now was, early 20s, I think, when David and the team took over. Our cybersecurity split is now close to 50%, and I think we were at 30% going back to 2018. So we've seen some big shifts there. The other, I think, significant things that I want to call out now is that in terms of our strategic investments we've made, we've got a lot of focus on our data and digital capabilities. So a new DNA, data and analytics leadership team, a completely new data architecture, big investments in data-driven programs, and also in the digital platforms. This year we've launched our own marketplace, which is called Partner Central. And we've also been really heavily focused on working with our strategic vendors on really deep integrations and automation, which originally, as part of our transformation, we're really looking at kind of back-end processes and how we could automate, enable that side of the supply chain. And now we're in a kind of our next wave, our next phase of transformation in our business. And it's really looking at more of the front end of the business and how we can really help digitally enable our partners. So a bit of background about us. I'm absolutely delighted that my partner in crime today is Johan. I've known Johan for a number of years, and I can honestly say, you know, he builds an absolute wealth of experience with him. He'll talk to you a little bit about his role and Sabio in a moment, but Johan has experience not only at partner level, he's also worked in distribution and within vendors as well. So I think his insights into some of the learnings and the discoveries we had through the survey and in general should be really valuable today. So thanks so much for joining us, Johan. If I could ask you just to say a few words about yourself.
Certainly, Rina, thank you. So my name's Johan McRae. I joined Sabio nearly 3 months ago as Chief Revenue Officer as part of the global executive team. As Rina alluded to, prior to that, when I returned from the Middle East, I actually worked at Westcon as General Manager for the UK and I business. Following that, I was MD of Avaya for UK Ireland and ran some VP roles there in international business. I recently was CEO of Maintel, a very big partner of Westcon's, and left there and joined Sabio a few months ago. So as Rina said, I've sort of worked in the distribution and the vendor and the partner landscape. I joined Sabio, as I mentioned, back in July of this year. So for those who don't know Sabio, we're all about customer experience, 25 years old, traditionally from that contact center background. But we've now extended our capability through acquisition and over the 25 years. So really it comes into 4 main areas, and much of that is relevant for the session that Runa's running today. So as I mentioned, in no particular order, a lot of our heritage came around the contact centers, and you can see some of the vendors that we work with in the bottom right-hand corner. We then started at least 10 or 15 years ago with the early adoption of AI in automation, and therefore optimization around contact centers and customer experience. Clearly, as the markets move, we've extended that with data and data analytics and data insight around the contact center. And further still, we acquired a company called Make Positive about 2.5 years ago, a very large Salesforce practice. So we bring our CRM capability into our portfolio. So CRM, AI, contact center, and data insight. We work with a number of large organizations, both public and private sector. Whilst headquartered in the UK, we have offices in mainland Europe, predominantly around the Benelux, Nordics, France, Spain, but further afield with touch points in the US, Singapore, India, and a larger capability in South Africa. We have 900 people, much of which are all experts around that CX and the wider portfolio that we carry. I mentioned there that we have Genesis, Avaya, Verint, and Salesforce within our strategic portfolio, but there are many more that we work with outside of that. In terms of AWS, Microsoft, Nuance, Twilio, Affinity, Zendesk, to name but a few, and obviously the Google integration. So hopefully that gives a bit of background to both myself and Sabio, and obviously the relevance and hopefully a contribution I can bring with Runa on the insights and studies that Westcon have conducted. So Runa, I'll hand back to you.
Thanks so much, Johan. Thank you. Okay, so I mean, if we roll back to when we were thinking about commissioning this research, it was post-pandemic. I mean, as everybody knows, a lot of change had occurred. We'd seen, you know, this real pivot to remote working. Our own organisation, I think we moved, you know, nearly 4,000 people remotely in the matter of 2 days. And many customers obviously doing the same thing. I think also the desire for end customers to want to not only consume and use technology in more flexible ways, but also to procure it. You know, channel partners had to respond to this. We all did. And what we really wanted to understand, though, was fundamentally how much of business has changed in line with this. So, we have this very established sales models, operational processes, sales team structures, commission plans, the whole kind of infrastructure that supports this this channel and the way it's worked, how much of that had really changed. And also cognizant of the fact that as we came out of the pandemic, we started to see some, pretty serious macroeconomic challenges as well emerging. And again, everyone's familiar with this, the economic downturn, the political instability that we see in a number of different markets. And in many cases, a more competitive and more constrained markets from an investment perspective. So we knew that we had our marketplace on the horizon. We were due to launch it. And we wanted to do some research to really take this temperature check to think about where our channel partners were in their transformation journey, and also explore some of the challenges they face, so that when we went to launch our marketplace, we could really understand how it was helping both with opportunity, but also helping take away some of those complexities and really getting a better picture of where our partners were today. So that's a bit about the background. In terms of what we actually did, we worked with an independent research company, and we conducted the research in 2 different markets, in the UK and in Australia. The research started off at the back end of last year, and we ran it through this year. And it was done through online survey and also qualitative sort of telephone interviews with a number of partners. We were talking to commercial decision makers in these channel partners, and looking at large enterprise VARs and the MSPs in the sort of target audience. So it was, a really interesting piece of work, and I think we've got some valuable insights for it, and that's what we kind of want to move on to now to start to explore. So at the top level, so we actually, before I mention that, we did write a report on the back of this research. So hopefully some of you have seen that. If not, we'd love you to have a look at it after the session today. But to summarise, I think it was really clear that all of our partners were on this journey. That was absolutely clear. But a very, very large proportion of partners called out that there was still a lot of work to do in order for them to transform their businesses fully as well, to really profit and maximise from this shift in the change in kind of the technology procurement. So partners are very much on this journey, but there was still work to do. And then we started to talk to them about the role of distribution marketplaces. And I think there's definitely an appreciation that there's a place for them. But what was interesting was that today, probably about half of the partners we spoke to were currently using distribution marketplaces. And the perception and also what they were using them for at that time was really around, I would say, some fairly standard transactional capabilities. And what became really evident to us was that there was both the need in terms of some of the kind of the landscape and the context and some of the challenges that we explored and we'll discuss in a moment, and also to start to think about ways that we can help drive growth, that actually marketplaces could focus on both areas. So becoming really effective at helping partners with their transactional needs and operational needs, but also looking at to be these growth sort of enablers and doing that in different ways, which again we're going to explore on the call today. So the first piece I think we'll start off with is around this sort of complex landscape. And this is real. The biggest thing that was called out to us from partners was that as they're making this shift, as they're navigating the changes that they're needing to make to their business to support their customers, trying to do this in a multi-vendor environment was really difficult. So all of our customers, all of our partners work with multiple vendors, and all of the vendors have got their own systems, their own operating systems, processes, programs, ways of rewarding channel partners. And they were also on their own journey. So they're navigating this transformation in their own way, and everybody's kind of doing it at different stages of maturity. So it made it difficult, and that was the number one thing, that number one challenge. The second point there was looking at the other sort of end of the channel, end users. And again, a lot of our partners talked about the different rates of change and desire for adoption through different partners. We have partners like Johan mentioned who work both in the commercial and public sector space, and could see very different appetites with different customers. Some real trailblazers, some more risk averse. I think there are customers that still want to sweat out some of their assets. There's still even with this shift to software, there's still hardware components that need to be managed. And what we see is very much a hybrid environment which our partners are operating in. And one of the challenges they had in that hybrid environment is that the way that supply chain providers, vendors, distributors were serving them is through different platforms, different systems, different processes. So it's really disjointed and quite hard to manage that at scale. The next point there around sort of sales motions is really then looking internally to partners' businesses. And there's again a complexity of introducing changes in their own business to try to manage these new sales motions. So, some partners we spoke to had changed their team structures, introduced customer success teams, changed commission structures, but not everybody has. And I think there's, partners were really wrestling with how much to change, and how much investment to make in really radically changing their own business and sales structures to adapt. And again, thinking about the vendors, vendors programs are instrumental in incentivizing and rewarding sales through the channel, and they had definitely were approaching this in different ways as well. And then the final piece is around the kind of skills gap, and I think this is can be considered in different ways. So both skills gaps within partners, but also at the end user level. And also interestingly, what came out from our research was that partners are seeing this both in terms of challenges keeping up with the evolution and rapid changes in the technologies that they were supporting, but also then in more kind of business and sales skills for their own teams. And that's something that really resonated in terms of our own business. So as we're moving into this operating in a more digital environment and also looking to help support partners with more of a sort of solutions life cycle, that requires different skills and capabilities within our sales teams. And there's a change management aspect there as well. So it's not just about keeping up to speed with the technology. There's also some softer skills and some business and selling skills that they were always having to navigate. So really quite a sort of I said a complex environment, and I think these are real challenges that partners were calling out as having to navigate in terms of really kind of progressing on that journey. So I want to pause there and ask you sort of for your perspective here, your thoughts. How does that resonate with your experience?
Well, highly resonates, and I sort of won't differentiate to some extent from my time at Maintel and more latterly at Sabio, because we face very similar challenges, both being a reseller and obviously a partner to Westcon. I think one of the toughest aspects is managing the multi-vendor. So depending on what your portfolio is, whether that be in more traditional LAN, WAN, Wi-Fi, SD-WAN networking, then moving into the more software, whether it be UCCC, security, the minute you start diversifying, you're on multiple vendors. Each of those vendors have a different portfolio. So there comes your skills gap, both in the partner and customer requirements. Many of them will have different commercial models as you move off more traditional perpetual-based hardware, software licensing to more consumption-based models. And each of them will have different partner programs. So different incentives, different commercials, and let's not forget different currencies as well, all of which have suddenly impounded a partner. You're suddenly managing multiple different vendors in multiple different ways, in multiple different currencies, with multiple different go-to-markets. Many vendors are very indirect, so they want to work through the likes of Westcon to the partners for geographical coverage. Others will want that plus a direct sales group, and others are moving much more towards direct and partners in weaker areas. So it is an immense challenge. At the heart of all of that, we've always worked closely with Westcom. You can rationalize your portfolio, you can get the pricing, to your point, Runa, on the partner central, and the ability to get the data you want, ability to get the pricing you want, the FX rate and the hedging, particularly the last couple of years, we've seen huge fluctuations in FX, but also understanding partner programs. So not only is it very diverse as a partner working with multiple vendors, the speed in which technology and customer requirements are changing, the end user is on a journey and also far more educated, i.e. they're speaking far more to the vendor, they understand the vendor portfolio, they understand their skills gap, and they're looking at partners to try and fulfill that, services-based and fulfillment and contractual obligations, whilst we collectively, as a partner and as Westcon, are trying to then manage the vendors in the background. So it is, in the last 5 or 6 years, a totally different landscape to when it was when I was at Westcon. It was far more traditional.
Thanks, Johan. Thank you. Just sort of actually building on one of the things that you called there in terms of access to data. This was another thing that came out from the research, and again, I think you sort of the breadth of data requirements that we need to think about now is just so much more complicated and deep than it used to be. So when we were talking, obviously these are kind of like requirements that partners had when they're kind of thinking about this shift. And I think what came out of this was that yes, there's a need for transactional data, but this goes far beyond now the kind of the standard, quote, invoice delivery kind of proof transactional data of old. We're looking at much richer information and data around cloud provisioning and billing and the analytics that go along with that. We heard from customers that they really wanted to understand how the market's changing as well, and understanding having data not only to help them with new opportunities, but really looking at helping get much better data and information around the solutions that they have sold. Now, historically, for us, that's really been around kind of the renewals and refresh motion. There's been a lot of investment and development in terms of really automating and enabling that. But going beyond that now, partners are asking for things like telemetry to really understand from software licenses that customers have bought, what have they actually activated, and that helps then partners be able to go back in and drive further adoption. And really sort of shorten that consumption gap that may exist in their customer estates. So, yes, data was critical in all of this. And I think what becomes clear then is that if we're going to be able to deliver this in an automated way, and to be able to scale this and have this accessible through a digital platform, the integrity of the data is absolutely critical, and we've got to make sure that we've got the right types of integrations with our vendors, and those automations, they've become really critical to scale this. So for us, that was, I suppose, gratifying, because we spent a lot of time and effort over the last few years working behind the scenes with our vendors on exactly that. But I think 100% the kind of the range and the breadth and the type of data that's really being needed now within the channel is definitely something that came across clearly. Yeah, so again, Johan, just wanted to see if you had any further thoughts on this, and how does this, how are you using data within with your business, and how does this kind of chime with you?
Well, it certainly resonates. Again, it's critical to our success, and it therefore provides us with a great opportunity, but equally it's one of our greatest challenges. So I sort of split data really simply of how we use it. The first is our existing customer data. We've touched on the fact of vendors changing both their go-to-market models, subscription, and in terms of their policies, in terms of simple as renewals, so under managed services support. So the accuracy of a customer data, when is their renewal, type of licenses, quantity of licenses, what have they bought in that renewal period, co-termination, the currency in which the transaction took place, the currency in which they want to be quoted. That is very complex, and many partners have made a number of acquisitions over their time, so they won't have necessarily a single billing platform, a single finance platform, a single project management platform, many of them a single CRM platform. So partners are trying to catch up whilst all of these transactions are going on, outward facing to customers, inward facing to either distribution or direct to the vendors. So being able to have a central store of data where you can reliably look at customer data, gain access to it, being able to quote from it, co-term, and get customer insights for your existing customer base is absolutely imperative. It's highly competitive, so you need to make sure you're quoting accurately, in time, with the correct quantity and quality, and at the right price. Otherwise, you're opening yourself to vulnerability to competition. The other side of data is something really you've touched on, which is sort of market insight and market data, buying cycles, which customers are midterm, which trends are coming up in terms of the marketplace. So you're starting to look at those vendors with Westcon as future portfolio items. So the future looking and the forward looking data is also critical. So you can arm your marketing teams, your sales teams, your net new sales teams with that level of data to go out and be 6, 12, 18, 24 months ahead of today. The other half is managing your business accurately with accurate data in a timely manner. Both of those are critical, but a very big challenge.
Great. I'm glad you talked about that sort of market data and the programs that run, because we're going to come on to that again in a moment. This is kind of just wanted to touch then on kind of giving that as the background and the context. When this again is kind of looking at the research and the findings from the work that we did. I think when we were talking to partners around how distribution marketplaces might help them, yes, there was like this big area which is around kind of taking away some of that complexity and making it easier to do business. And to be honest with you, and you'll know this, making the complex simple is what keeps distribution in business. And what we're really sort of redefining that value in a digital world, in the kind of modern world, really. But some of the things I think your partners were calling out are worth just commenting on a touch more. So this simplification and automation of sales process was the number one thing. And I think we talked a little bit about that. The idea of self-serve, but really kind of supercharging these self-serve capabilities. So much more than some of the kind of the basic, quote order statuses that we may have kind of associated with distribution marketplaces traditionally. We're now looking at dashboards, on the most complex products with really rich information at fingertips, and that gives a real, I think, efficiency sort of boost to the teams that we're working with, being able to go in and serve themselves right across the business and even on those kind of complex projects. Subscription management, again, is critical, and automating that. So, I know working and talking to our sales teams, the toing and froing that goes on between, end user, channel partner team, distribution, vendor, backwards and forwards, is things around an order changes. And on subscriptions, that was such a manual process before, for us anyway. Now, what might take days to make changes and then to be able to activate them is now kind of almost live, can happen in a matter of minutes, and that is a big deal when you're looking to really sort of scale these solutions. So automating that subscription management was huge. You mentioned, Johan, pricing. So trying to manage like advanced pricing with the currency fluctuations and the volatility that we've seen, particularly over the last years around that, has been absolutely nightmare, as you know. When you're quoting on solutions, the changes, you quote several times, right, before an opportunity is closed, let alone placed through distribution and into the vendor. And that becomes very difficult because our vendors are typically working in dollars, and obviously we're quoting in a different currency. So being able to manage that, being able to do that with the right level of right data and integration and automation to make sure that advanced pricing is really transparent, again, is huge. And quite sophisticated, but and a real game changer, I think, for many partners. Being able to procure hybrid solutions, so thinking about that mix of technology, whether it's hardware, software, services, doing that in one place, again, it's making things easier. The other thing that came out in conversation with partners was also around the flexibility around payments. So we have partners who may be getting paid from their customers on a recurring basis, on a monthly basis, whatever that is, but they're still having to pay for the solutions upfront to vendors. And so finding ways that we can then ease that burden and bridge that gap were also highly valued. And then the final point there really is around, I think, kind of things that we take for granted in a B2C environment, making our digital experiences in the marketplace more personalized. So we may be engaging with salespeople, procurement, finance, administrative teams who all have different needs and requirements, and really being able to provide a much more tailored, customized experience, I think, is also really critical now as well. So a lot of that is really about helping us take the complexity away, make doing business easier. And then, as we've discussed, the sort of the and is really around finding ways that we can start to drive growth. So that may be with training and enablement services, but I think increasingly it's looking to getting that robust and deep data at each point of the life cycle, and putting that into programs that can be accessed, through these marketplaces. And then whether that's looking ahead to market opportunity, whether that's drilling into, a partner's end users, estates, there's a lot of opportunity for us to do that. We have a marketing program actually that we run in Westcon called Intelligent Demand, and I think it generated across our business something like $450 million of revenue, but it's offline at the moment, and how we're thinking, how can we build that into our marketplace? And I think that's where this whole environment becomes richer and richer and richer. And certainly in terms of, our thinking around where do we go now, it's absolutely around, making sure that kind of the transactional is as slick as it possibly can be, but then thinking about how can we use our marketplace as an enabler to really drive more growth in this kind of subscription economy that we're in. So I think that's it in terms of sort of the research. Do you have anything else that you wanted to kind of call out from that?
No, I think, you touched on a couple of things, and we should never underestimate how, really, you touched on that, how long it has historically taken, not Westcon per se, but getting quotes, providing them to a customer. Quite often, by the time the customer's received it, viewed it, and commented back, the quote can be out of date. FX rates, vendor change in policy. So having real-time, accurate data that you can rely on, quote a customer, and adjust it accordingly is so important. Having it automated and removing people per se removes error and time. It also allows for a partner like us, where we may have quite a big back office doing a lot of this data entry, data management for the front of our business. Having that automated by something like Westcon allows us to repurpose certain headcount to the front of the business. So actually have a commercial outlet or customer success managers to make sure we're looking after our business. So the ROI model for a partner working with Westcon is really important. And I guess when we touch on people, the only other massive value add that we take, and I've taken in the past from Westcon, is the experts you have in there, the pre-sales, the solution architects, the subject matter experts, and us being able to flex our capability with the people you have inherited at Westcon. So if we need intelligence on a new portfolio or something we're trying to onboard, whilst we upskill our team, we have the capability already within Westcon, and having that flex and that resource and skill set to hand is invaluable in a quicker go-to-market, customer support, and the flexibility we need on resources and capability at any given point in time. So the human aspect and the expertise you carry is something that has bode extremely well for us, particularly at Westcon as we were expanding our at Maintel, when we were expanding our portfolio in a very short period of time.
I think that's an interesting point, actually, you just mentioned there about people. And I think we definitely saw that through the pandemic, where many businesses, I think ours included, you just chuck people at the problem to try to overcome some of these operational challenges. And now, as we're kind of moving through that, it's absolutely thinking about how can I redeploy this resources. And I think we're definitely on the same page there. All right, just before we open up for questions, I just wanted to highlight or draw your attention to a next round of research that we are very, very close to actually launching. And it's actually building on this theme around data and the role with our channel partners in how it's helping with this shift. And we're going to be exploring again the opportunities as well as some of the challenges that partners have. Expanding the research this time, so we'll go back into the UK and Australian markets, but we're also looking at a number of the markets in the Nordics, across sub-Saharan Africa, and also in Indonesia. So a bigger project, and also some different types of markets there, which I hopefully will give some interesting insights. And we will look, predominantly around this role of data in the solutions life cycle, which we touched a little bit on today. And we're also going to look at some of the challenges that our partners are facing when they're looking at some of their sustainability targets, and how that's kind of playing out in the channel environment today, and obviously looking at kind of what our role as a distributor might be in all of that. So the goal is for us to produce the next report at the early part of next calendar year. So if you've got any thoughts on that, we'd love to hear. If you want a copy of it, let us know. And if you'd like to get a readout from that, then we'd be really happy to do that next year as well. I think that's all from us now. So maybe we can open up for questions if there are any.
Yeah, Runa, I can see a few questions there. There was one question actually which I was able to answer. Somebody was asking about the sample size. So I was able to answer that. 288 people surveyed with an average turnover of £78 million. So quite an impressive sample size there. One other question that came in kind of starts off with a statement. Partners struggle with visibility into the early stages of the buying cycle, with buyers using cloud marketplaces. How are distributor marketplaces empowering partners with early stage data while protecting end customer data?
Yeah, so I mean, we have I know it's hard actually, but we as I said, we have a program where our approach to doing this is trying to, and we run this with our DNA team, where we are looking at aggregating different data sources. So our own data we have from vendors, third-party data, to look at opportunities, and we can delve quite deeply into specific end users. But we do that in partnership with a channel partner. So we would never take information around end users to a partner that wasn't engaged with a particular end user. So it's very much a collaborative approach. Johan, I know you've worked with us on this program. We're looking to try to kind of make that more and more sophisticated. And often we can uncover, we don't provide end user customer data. We're looking at it on the names of the partners, but often through the data sources that we have and kind of like analysing that, we can look at potential opportunities and then work with our partners to approach the end users. The partner always owns the relationship with the end user. We don't get involved in that directly.
Thank you. One other question: as the hyperscalers extend their offer how can they best use distributors and resellers?
Yeah, I mean,
Rena, you go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I think it's, I was sure that this question would come up today. I think, you know, a lot of people say, oh, this is coming. Well, the hyperscalers and the marketplaces are reality. And I think what we need to do is find a way to partner. I can't say too much, but we are in very close to making some commercial announcements about our relationship with a particular hyperscaler. So watch out for that. But I think it is about partnership and finding, you know, mutual value there. And I do believe that's possible to do, and something that, you know, is very much on our agenda.
Yeah, I mean, Duncan, to add to that, yeah, as I alluded to at the intro of Sabio, we work with a number of those hyperscalers. I guess some of the obvious ones, they don't always have the geographical reach. So partners that are located in those regions, have the skill sets in those regions, they can work with and allow geographical coverage. Whilst the hyperscalers can offer a breadth of capability and technology, not all of the customers have the skills to necessarily integrate it and work with it. You've also got to remember that there's a huge amount of customers that still have a lot of on-prem technology, and actually migrating those to a fully public, hybrid, or private cloud. The level of integration over many, many years, costing many, many millions of pounds or dollars, it's not easy to lift and shift that to the cloud. So whilst hyperscalers can offer you a certain amount of capability, there is a huge amount of work to steadily migrate that, and customers, larger customers in particular, and those sensitive to data sovereignty, aren't necessarily doing it in one foul swoop. It's a journey, and there'll be elements of it. The hyperscalers can't do all of that, nor can necessarily all the customers. So having partners and or distributors in the middle with the geographical location, the skill sets, and the referenceability to move them on a journey that suits the customer, but still gives them their end journey, is absolutely critical. So I would see hyperscalers absolutely in the market, but a requirement to partner if they're going to be able to actually help transform customers and deliver them the outcomes the customers want by investing in them.
Yes, that makes sense. It absolutely is a journey, doesn't it? Another interesting, well, I mean, maybe a more fundamental question. Thinking about the way that you develop opportunities with partners, what methods and how differently do you see your role versus, say, the role of a software author in end user acquisition for their indirect channel? So how there must be different ways that division of labor could exist. How do you see your role in that situation? I suppose obviously the two of you have got different roles, so you might see yourselves in different positions.
I think from a distribution perspective, as I mentioned, you know, it's very much a partnership. You know, we work through technical specialists as well as sales and marketing teams to really partner in quite a deep way with our channel partners. And so it's more about how we can operate as an extension of their teams. And that's always been the way that we've approached it. I think the difference now is that the kind of the access to data, the type of data, the deeper intelligence that we can get now is really kind of helping us have much more sophisticated and targeted conversations and approaches, working in partnership with the partners. But we very much really see ourselves as an extension of the channel partners team.
And I would echo that. Sorry, Duncan, a bit late coming in there with Rena, but no, I'd echo that. It's a challenge, and we wouldn't do it necessarily. Each partner, to Rena's point, will have a different way of achieving this. And I've worked previously with Westcon in utilising the skill sets and the capabilities they have. It's a challenge, but one that Westcon, to me, bring a huge amount of value add for all the reasons Rena's just mentioned there. And that won't go away. You know, the market's moving extremely quickly, new technology, new customer requirements, competition. Acquisitions and mergers are happening all the time. So having that level of partnership and shared knowledge and shared skill sets to go to market is, in my view, actually more important now than it was maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. It's interesting, this idea though, the kind of the role of distribution with end user acquisition, because I think about what our vendors are asking for us. Every single vendor we work through is saying, you know, number one kind of priority now is how can you help with net new logos, is, you know, the terminology that they use. And so, you know, we're always looking for better ways to help us do that. But yeah, very much in partnership. And I think, you know, that's why you can't do that unless you have the trusted relationships with your partners, which is, you know, what we sort of pride ourselves on doing.
No, completely.
And I wonder if relationships are also part of the answer to the next question, which really is about the fact that people have got choices about where they buy things. Partners are benefiting from the ability to leverage customers' cloud commitments for sales through the hyperscaler marketplaces. How can distributors leverage the customer's cloud commitments across cloud service providers?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, if I'm honest with you. Sorry. Can you rephrase that?
Maybe. In fact, what I might even do is move on to the next question and then invite the person who posed that question to try to rephrase that. Next comment this is more like a comment with a "do you agree" kind of thing. This analyst says, I continue to see more partners becoming departmental experts beyond vertical experts, and then creating a comprehensive software portfolio with a hardware drag. As an example, legal departments with document classification, knowledge management, DLP, etc. Are you seeing this in your data as well? So just the growth of the portfolio?
That's one for you, Owen.
Yeah, I'd agree with it. So, I mean, you get verticals, obviously, and we have simplify it, public, private sector, and then obviously you got the verticals within it. But it's a very good observation. Departmental within a vertical. Requirements are definitely differing. Buying cycles, we know, the traditional days of speaking to the telecoms manager, the head of IT, have long gone. It involves an array of CX, CFOs, COOs, digital transformation officers, digital officers, head of contact center for us, head of CRM, head of marketing. So you've already got multiple stakeholders when you're starting to do a digital transformation journey. So you're already into an element of departmental discussions, because everything you now deploy, particularly us at Sabio, will touch every single aspect of them. Within those, they will each have specific requirements, whether it's for their own internal stakeholders, users, employees. If it's a contact center, it tends to be both the agent side and customer experience and delivering that level of experience. That then ties in data that could sit anywhere in an organization and cross into IT, security, and then moves into marketing, but you've got the digital marketing moved into any plans that you do within a contact center. So actually, I see it as not only 2D, but 3D now. You've got your verticals, departmentals, and people within those all requiring aspects to be fulfilled as they go on a digital transformation journey or a CX transformation. So yeah, we're seeing multiple layers and multiple requirements as we discuss with customers and assist them on their CX journey.
Let me have a go at rephrasing this question from earlier on. In fact, here it is, just popped up. So much of what is driving hyperscaler marketplace sales is allowing customers to use expanding cloud budgets to procure third-party products through cloud marketplaces. So leading hyperscalers offer that in their marketplace. Is Westcon talking with hyperscalers about how buyers might leverage their cloud budget to procure through the distributor marketplace?
So yes, yeah. So as I said, there are absolutely conversations and work going on in this space. There are some commercial agreements that we are due to announce very soon in a matter of weeks, which I think which will probably answer your question in more detail. And I think, if Duncan, if I can offer it, I'd be happy to arrange for Frank, if you wanted to have a conversation with the person who's leading that that project and that program within our business.
That sounds like a great conversation to have when you reach the point where you can.
Yeah, very, very, very close, very close.
Where we can say more. Another question is, what sort of partners seem to suffer most from a skills deficit? Maybe this is a difficult question because, all of your children are equally loved, all of your partners are equally capable. But do you think there are some characteristics of some partners which are facing, who are struggling more to meet clients' demands for higher levels of skill?
I mean, again, from what I understand, actually, if you look at, we have a training and part side to our business, and if you look at the type of partners that we're serving through that, well, about 50% of the customers that we deal with for learning are actually end users, who are coming directly for training, and this is around kind of vendors technologies, largely. So there is that sort of, as I think Johan mentioned earlier on, the kind of the capability of the end user, and that applies at a technical level as well as at a buyer level. They're actually some of the larger partners that we work with, so we're often we're working with them to help plug the gaps. I also think that you see a lot more kind of co-partnering as well now, so whether that's with a distribution or to other channel organizations to help with some of the skills challenges. So I'm not sure that answers your question, Duncan, in terms of who struggles most. I'm not sure I can answer that. But I certainly don't think it's the case that it's just smaller partners who are struggling with skills capabilities and looking to work with other channel organizations to address that.
Totally. I mean, honestly, it could be the opposite, couldn't it? It could be the most developed ones that have the most demanding clients, that have the most challenging installations, and that is where you feel the pain points. You and I don't know if you have a thought about that. I'm sure you have some demanding clients because your organization's making substantial promises.
Yeah, I mean, Sabio is all about services. We've got 900 people. Well over half of those are experts in any of the four: the AI, the data, the CRM, the contact center. So our capability is, and the skills we carry is to address exactly the problem we've done, the skills deficit. Either that skills deficit within the vendors, that's the skills deficit within the customer, and that value add. It's complex. The technology is moving very quickly. It's highly competitive when you look at sort of customer experience and digital journeys. Whether you're looking at the retail industry, which is a big vertical for us, they're all competing, whether it be online sales and CX and digital transformation, and in the high street. So also they've all got the same requirements. They're all going to go about it slightly differently because that's their competitive edge. But in doing so, they will have all got varying levels of technology on-prem. They will have started some form of CX journey. You've got the vendors changing and or requiring and or merging extremely quickly. You've got hyperscalers coming into the market. So where that knowledge and or skill deficit, and that sounds rather foreboding in the market, but it's absolutely true because of the speed in which customers are requiring change and the speed in which technology is changing. That's exactly where we see the opportunity within Sabio, is helping customers, guiding customers. And we run a very simple program. It's constantly informing customers of what it is, what's the capable we can do. It's transforming their business, and then it's consistently reforming. We have seldom do we sell a solution anymore and come back a few years later for the customer for renewal. Those days are long gone. It is a continuous journey of optimization, ROI, and proof points back of investment and CX. So the skills deficit can vary on what partner journey they're on and which segments and customer size they're addressing. I think there will always be a skill set because of the speed of change and the speed of technology. But that's the value that a Westcon and partners like Sabio can bring to customers.
Fantastic. I really have no more questions that I want to draw to your attention. So I think what I might be tempted to do is just hand back and give each of you, a minute or two if you have any final thoughts that you want to make. Obviously, we'll be reaching out to attendees with information about the research and about the future research, as well as with a recording of the session. But what are your final thoughts on this conversation now you've lived through it?
Well, listen, I think what I find just sort of so energizing actually about working with the channel, and it's been really interesting again, kind of talking to Johan about this, and when we were doing the research, is just the energy, the appetite, and just the sort of the endeavor of channel partners in looking at kind of overcoming any challenge and finding that entrepreneurial and industrious way to approach this. And I think that's been really sort of enlightening for me. And it was a very enjoyable project to work on, and we're really interested to find out what our partners are telling us through the next research.
As I say, in line with Runa, the results that have come through reaffirm how we work with Westcon, what we're seeing in the marketplace, and also the challenges we've all got coming forward. The challenges actually provide an opportunity, and we've made a number of changes at Sabio to address those, and equally we'll always have a very close working a partnership with Westcon, and based on the data in the market, we don't see our partnership with Westcon wavering at all. In fact, most really getting even stronger across all of our regions. So it's a pleasure working with Westcon, always has been, and no doubt always will be.
Fantastic, thank you so much. I mean, really, what a great discussion. And Runa, I especially appreciate the way that you are, mentioning the next cycle of data collection to the analyst on the call now, and who knows, there may be some feedback or suggestions from analysts that can help that next cycle of data collection become even more powerful. Thank you really so much. I will wrap up the webinar now, and we will get the recording over to people as soon as we have it processed.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Many
Johan.
thanks indeed, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.